There is a pyramid on Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula that has been climbed, photographed, and studied for more than a century, one of the most visited ancient monuments on the entire continent, its silhouette recognizable to millions of people who have never set foot anywhere near it. And for most of that century, everyone studying it was looking in the wrong direction. They were looking up at the 91 steps on each of its 4 staircases, at the serpent-shaped shadow that creeps down its northern face twice a year at the equinox. Nobody was looking down into the ground the pyramid was actually sitting on. Local legend had always insisted there was something underneath, a watery underworld, a hidden labyrinth, a sacred passage leading somewhere no living person had ever mapped. For generations, archaeologists treated those stories the way archaeologists usually treat local legend, respectfully, but without much expectation that ground-penetrating instruments would ever confirm any of it. Then, in a research effort that has now stretched across nearly a decade, researchers pointed exactly that kind of instrument straight down through solid limestone and found something that was never supposed to be there in the first place. A hidden natural feature sitting directly beneath one of the most famous pyramids on Earth, connected to a corridor system so extensive that even now, after years of increasingly detailed scanning, nobody has fully mapped where it actually leads. This is Chichén Itzá, and what researchers found beneath the Temple of Kukulcán has puzzled everyone who has studied it since. If you're new here, this channel covers ancient North American history and the landmarks hiding some of the continent's most remarkable, least-known stories. Like this video and subscribe now, and let me know in the comments if you'd ever heard about what's hiding beneath this pyramid before today. But first, you need to understand exactly what this pyramid actually is, and just how carefully and purposefully its builders positioned it on the landscape in the first place, because that placement turns out to be the whole reason anyone ever thought to look underground at all. Chichén Itzá rises from the flat limestone plains of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, a Maya city that reached the height of its power and influence somewhere between the 9th and 12th centuries of the Common Era, becoming one of the largest and most politically significant cities in the entire Maya world during that period. At its center stands El Castillo, also known as the Temple of Kukulcán, a stepped pyramid roughly 100 feet tall, built with 4 staircases of 91 steps each, adding up to 365 when you include the single step at the top platform, a number that matches the days of the solar year almost certainly by design. The pyramid's builders were master astronomers as much as they were master architects. Twice a year, at the spring and fall equinoxes, the setting sun casts a series of triangular shadows along the edge of the pyramid's northern staircase, an optical effect that appears to show a massive serpent slithering down the steps toward a carved serpent head positioned at the base, a calculated alignment between architecture and astronomy that Maya builders would have needed generations of careful observation to design and execute correctly. El Castillo doesn't stand alone. It sits at the center of a much larger ceremonial complex that includes the Great Ball Court, one of the largest and best preserved ball courts anywhere in Mesoamerica, along with the Temple of the Warriors, the Group of 1,000 Columns, and the sacred cenote itself, all connected by a network of raised stone causeways known as sacbiob. The scale and coordination of this complex reflects a city that, at its height, commanded significant political and religious influence across the wider Maya region, drawing pilgrims, traders, and rulers from considerable distances to participate in ceremonies staged at its center. Chichén Itzá's importance has never really faded from public memory the way many other Maya cities eventually did. The site was formally designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1988, and in 2007 was voted one of the new 7 wonders of the world in a widely publicized global poll, recognition reflecting both its remarkable state of preservation and its continued hold on the public imagination centuries after the city itself was largely abandoned. But the ground the pyramid sits on carries its own kind of significance, one the ancient Maya understood intimately, and one that took modern researchers considerably longer to fully appreciate. The Yucatan Peninsula sits on a vast bed of porous limestone, riddled underneath with natural sinkholes called cenotes, formed when the limestone bedrock collapses and exposes the groundwater and cave systems below. For the Maya, these cenotes held profound religious significance, understood as sacred portals connecting the world of the living to Xibalba, the Maya underworld. Chichén Itzá's own sacred cenote, a massive natural sinkhole located a short walk from El Castillo along a raised stone causeway, served for centuries as a site of ritual offering, where the Maya deposited valuable objects and, according to physical evidence recovered from its depths, human remains as well, some showing unhealed wounds and fractures consistent with sacrifice occurring at or near the time of death. Given how central cenotes were to Maya religious life, and given how precisely Maya builders positioned every other element of Chichén Itzá according to astronomical and religious significance, researchers had long suspected the placement of El Castillo itself might not be arbitrary either. If the pyramid's builders had chosen this exact spot on purpose, the obvious question was what, specifically, might be sitting underneath it. For most of the 20th century, that question remained essentially unanswerable. Excavating directly beneath a monument as significant, fragile, and heavily visited as El Castillo was never a realistic option, not without risking serious damage to one of the most important structures in the Maya world. Any answer would have to come from technology capable of seeing through solid limestone without disturbing a single stone on the surface. If you're wondering how researchers eventually solved that problem, subscribe now, because the breakthrough that finally let scientists look underneath this pyramid took years to develop, and even longer to fully understand what it had actually found. Interest in what might lie beneath and around Chichén Itzá is not in itself a new idea. As far back as 1883, early investigators including Augustus Le Plongeon and his wife Alice Dixon Le Plongeon were already excavating and documenting specific structures at the site, including a detailed excavation of the platform of Venus, a smaller platform near El Castillo, using plan drawings, cross-sections, and early photography to record what they found. Beginning in 1904 and continuing until 1910, American consul and amateur archaeologist Edward Thompson undertook the long, difficult process of dredging the sacred cenote itself, using diving equipment to recover gold ornaments, carved jade, and human remains from its depths. Work that first established direct physical evidence of ritual sacrifice at the site, evidence that later, far more precise scientific analysis, including the 2024 genetic study, would go on to refine and confirm in far greater detail. Ground-penetrating radar surveys at Chichén Itzá also predate the more famous 21st century investigations. As early as 1993, researchers conducted early GPR surveys of the site's Great Plaza and Great Ball Court, working with INAH to identify buried features beneath the plaza surface, including a trench cut directly into the limestone bedrock that appeared to disappear beneath El Castillo's own eastern staircase. That early work established the basic feasibility of using radar to study the ground beneath Chichén Itzá without excavation, laying the technical groundwork for the far more targeted investigation that would eventually confirm a cenote directly beneath the pyramid itself. That confirmation came in 2015, when Mexican geophysicist René Chávez Segura, working with Mexico's National Autonomous University, known by its Spanish acronym UNAM, applied a technique called electrical resistivity imaging to the ground directly beneath El Castillo. The method works by sending small electrical currents through the earth and measuring how different materials resist that current. Water-filled voids conduct electricity very differently than solid limestone bedrock, allowing researchers to build a picture of what lies underground without ever needing to dig. What Chávez Segura's survey found confirmed exactly what generations of local legend had insisted was there all along. A natural cenote, a genuine water-filled sinkhole sitting directly beneath the pyramid itself. It was the first hard scientific confirmation that El Castillo hadn't simply been built on convenient, stable ground. It had been built directly on top of one of the sacred natural features that defined Maya religious geography in the first place. A placement that could only have been intentional, given how precisely the rest of the pyramid's design already reflected careful astronomical and religious planning. That discovery reframed the entire question researchers were asking about the site. It was no longer simply, is there something underneath this pyramid? It became, how do the builders of El Castillo access or connect to this cenote? And did they leave behind any physical passage linking the two? The search for that passage began in earnest the following year. In 2016 and 2017, underwater archaeologist Guillermo de Anda led an initiative called the Great Maya Aquifer Project, working with Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History, known by its Spanish acronym INAH, along with support from the National Geographic Society. Described at the time as the most comprehensive investigation of the site in 50 years, the project deployed a combination of ground-penetrating radar and a specialized form of LiDAR imaging capable of detecting subsurface voids and cavities, scanning both the interior structure of El Castillo and the surrounding plaza for evidence of tunnels, chambers, or passageways connecting to the cenote Chávez Segura's team had already confirmed. That survey work led to a genuinely significant find. Researchers located a blocked passageway accessible through El Osario itself, a smaller pyramid structure built around the year 980 and constructed as a scaled-down version of El Castillo's own design. Located roughly 500 meters from El Castillo near the ex-Toloc cenote, El Osario turned out to hold considerably more than initial investigations had suggested. De Anda described the discovery directly at the time, explaining that through the ossuary, researchers could enter the cave system beneath the structure, where they encountered a passageway that had been intentionally blocked, almost certainly sealed off by the ancient Maya themselves, rather than collapsing naturally over time. De Anda expressed real anticipation about what the team might find if they were able to clear the blockage, stating his hope that doing so would conclusively confirm whether the local legends of an elaborate underworld beneath the site held any truth. That detail, a passage sealed on purpose rather than lost to time or natural collapse, raised an entirely new set of questions. Why would the Maya go to the trouble of intentionally closing off access to a passage connected to one of their most sacred cenotes? Was it meant to protect something inside? To seal away something dangerous? Or was sealing the passage itself part of the ritual significance of the space, an act of closure rather than simple abandonment? If you're wondering how much further this investigation eventually went, stay with me, because what researchers found when they returned with far more sophisticated equipment nearly a decade later didn't answer those questions. It made the underground system beneath this pyramid look considerably larger and considerably more complicated than anyone had previously mapped. Research into what lies beneath Chichén Itzá continued for years following the Great Maya Aquifer Project's initial findings, but the investigation reached its most detailed stage yet in September of 2024, when INAH announced results from a new survey combining high-resolution ground-penetrating radar with three-dimensional electrical resistivity tomography, a more advanced version of the same underground imaging technique Chávez Segura had first applied back in 2015. This newer survey produced by far the most detailed underground map of the area beneath El Castillo that researchers had ever generated. The scan revealed a corridor running roughly 30 meters in length, oriented on a north-south axis directly beneath the pyramid, with additional side chambers detected branching off from the main passage at multiple different depths. Unlike the earlier, more limited resistivity and radar surveys, this new data offered researchers a considerably more complete picture of the underground system's actual scale, revealing that whatever lies beneath El Castillo is more extensive and more architecturally complex than the earlier discovery of a single blocked passageway near El Osario had suggested on its own. What this 2024 survey did not do, despite its considerably higher resolution, was settle the underlying questions researchers have been asking since Chávez Segura's original 2015 discovery. Researchers still have not conclusively determined whether this newly mapped 30-meter corridor connects directly to the cenote confirmed beneath the pyramid, or whether it links to the separate blocked passageway discovered near El Osario back in 2016 and 2017. The side chambers detected at multiple depths raise further open questions about what those spaces might have been used for, whether as burial chambers, ritual spaces, storage areas, or something else entirely that won't be clear without direct physical access. Researchers have been extremely cautious about pursuing, given the risk of damaging one of the most significant and heavily visited structures anywhere in the Maya world. Alongside this underground mapping research, a separate but closely related discovery added a genuinely striking new layer to the site's ritual history. In April of 2024, a multidisciplinary team from INAH and Harvard University published a full genome study in the journal Nature, examining the remains of 64 children recovered from a chultun, an underground storage chamber located beside the sacred cenote. The genetic analysis produced a result nobody studying the site had anticipated. Every one of the 64 individuals was male, and roughly a quarter of them were identical twins. That finding carries direct significance for understanding Maya religious belief. The Popol Vuh, the foundational Maya creation narrative, tells the story of the hero twins, two brothers who are sacrificed and subsequently reborn, a central mythological pairing running throughout Maya cosmology. Finding a genuinely elevated rate of identical twins, specifically among sacrificial remains recovered near the sacred cenote, strongly suggests that victim selection at Chichén Itzá was considerably more intentional and considerably more directly tied to specific religious narrative than researchers had previously assumed, overturning earlier assumptions that sacrificial victims at the site were selected more randomly or included a mix of genders rather than exclusively young males connected to this specific mythological pairing. Taken together, the corridor mapping and the genetic findings from the same general period paint a picture of a site where the underground world beneath the pyramid and the ritual practices carried out above it were almost certainly deeply, purposefully connected, even if researchers still can't say with full confidence exactly how every piece fits together. If you're wondering what all of this ultimately means for how historians understand Chichén Itzá as a whole, stick with me, because the significance of these findings goes well beyond simply confirming there's a tunnel under a pyramid. It reframes the entire relationship between the Maya's sacred geography and the architecture they built directly on top of it. What sets the ongoing investigation at Chichén Itzá apart from many unusual degree of scientific caution? Researchers have had strong evidence of a natural cenote beneath El Castillo since 2015. They've known about a sealed passageway connected to the underground cave system since 2016 and 2017. And as of the far more detailed 2024 survey, they have a clear picture of a 30-meter corridor with multiple branching chambers running directly beneath one of the most significant monuments in the Maya world. And yet, nearly a decade after this investigation began, nobody has physically walked through that corridor, opened the blocked passage near El Osario, or definitively confirmed how or whether these separate underground features connect to one another. That isn't a failure of the research. It reflects a careful, considered approach to a site researchers understand they may only get one real opportunity to investigate properly without risking irreversible damage to a structure that has already survived more than 1,000 years. This caution stands in real contrast to earlier eras of archaeology at Chichén Itzá and at Maya sites more broadly, when adventurers and even some early archaeologists working with far less sophisticated equipment sometimes damaged or disturbed ancient sites in the process of investigating them, removing artifacts and altering structures in ways that permanently destroyed context researchers today would give a great deal to have preserved. Edward Thompson's own early dredging of the sacred cenote, for all the valuable evidence it recovered, was itself a product of that earlier, rougher era of archaeology, conducted with methods and equipment that would raise serious concerns by modern standards. The technology now available, ground-penetrating radar, LiDAR, electrical resistivity tomography, exists specifically to avoid repeating that pattern, allowing researchers to build an increasingly detailed picture of what lies beneath a site like El Castillo without ever needing to put a shovel or a drill into the pyramid itself. That approach means the mystery beneath Chichén Itzá remains for now genuinely unresolved. Researchers know considerably more today than they did in 2015 about the scale and complexity of what sits beneath the pyramid. They can map a 30-meter corridor and its branching side chambers with real precision. They have genetic evidence directly connecting the site's sacrificial practices to specific mythological narrative. But the central questions, exactly where that corridor leads, what the side chambers were actually used for, and whether local legends of a genuine underworld connected to the cenote hold any further truth beyond what's already been confirmed, remain open, pending either further technological advancement or a level of physical investigation researchers have so far been unwilling to risk. What this actually means. Chichén Itzá has been studied, excavated, and visited for well over a century. Long enough that it might seem, on the surface, like a site with very little left to discover. What the last decade of underground investigation has demonstrated instead is that some of the most significant unanswered questions about a well-known ancient site aren't necessarily hiding in some unexplored corner of the jungle. Sometimes they're sitting directly beneath a structure millions of people have already visited, walked around, and photographed, invisible simply because nobody had yet developed the technology capable of looking straight down through solid limestone without damaging what was on top of it. The story of what lies beneath El Castillo also reframes how purposefully the Maya themselves approached the relationship between architecture and sacred geography. This wasn't a pyramid built on convenient, stable ground that happened to sit near a cenote. Every piece of evidence gathered since 2015 points toward a monument positioned with the same level of careful, generations-deep intentionality the Maya clearly applied to the pyramid's equinox shadow alignment and its 365-step count, extended downward into the earth itself, connecting the pyramid directly to one of the most sacred natural features in the entire Maya religious landscape. And the 2024 genetic findings add a further layer to that picture, suggesting the ritual practices carried out at the site weren't simply broad, generalized offerings, but were shaped by specific mythological narrative reaching back to the hero twins of the Popol Vuh, a level of precise, symbolic care in victim selection that researchers hadn't previously been able to confirm. Nearly a decade into this investigation, the underground world beneath Chichén Itzá remains only partially mapped, and its deeper purpose remains genuinely unresolved. But what began with a single geophysicist confirming a rumor about water beneath a pyramid has grown into one of the most carefully documented, technologically sophisticated ongoing investigations into any ancient site on the continent. A reminder that even the most thoroughly studied monuments in the world can still be hiding an entire chapter of their own story, quietly, directly underneath where everyone has already been standing. If this surprised you, let me know in the comments below, and subscribe for more ancient North American history hiding in plain sight. Watch the next videos.